All right, thanks very much. The big news yesterday, pharmaceutical giant Pfizer is hoping to get approval of its COVID-19 vaccine by the FDA, and soon, if the agency approves it for emergency use, healthcare workers and other first responders could get it by the end of the year. The FDA approval could come as soon as Thanksgiving, and our Asha Staples talked to some local doctors about taking part in the study and explains just how it's being conducted. Asha?
Yeah, good morning. They actually released that number of the efficacy rate at 90%. So this shows that the company is on a good track to get that emergency use with U.S. regulators. But of course, it's a long road ahead. Hopefully, we'll get there sooner than later. Of course, a lot of people wondering when that vaccine may be available. But that vaccine trial is what's important here. And I did speak with the doctor with Ochsner Health, Dr. Julia Garcia Diaz. She's actually one of the investigative doctors that's on the vaccine trial. Ochsner, if you're not familiar, is one of 120 clinical investigational sites around the world that enroll participants, and one of 2 locations in the state to offer the study. Dr. Garcia Diaz says the trial is going well, but there is still work to do. So she explained to me how it works. The enrolled participants are given either the vaccine or a placebo. From there, doctors monitor their health as they develop COVID symptoms or no symptoms at all. She also says it's critical to go into the trial blind, so behavior from both the doctor or the participant does not change. And she also added that just because health experts are on the right track to a vaccine doesn't mean that we should stop the health practices that we've made normal by now.
We have to be able to curtail this pandemic, and the only way to do that is to do multiple pieces. The mask, the social distancing, the hand washing, and the vaccine is one piece of that.
And Dr. Garcia Diaz says it's unlikely that any vaccine will arrive by the end of the year, but of course things continuously change, so they're hoping that that will be a little bit different. But again, this vaccine trial is very important. If you have any questions and that you want to get answered about the vaccine trial or to be a participant, they're still looking for some. You can of course contact Ochsner Health professionals at your leisure. Back to you guys.
All right, Asha, thank you very much. According to Nola Reddy, Ochsner's vaccine trial is only one of many being conducted here in the city. The Nola Research Works vaccine trial is recruiting patients for their COVID-19 antibody medicine for pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly and Company. The Tulane Epidemic Monitoring and Prevention System, also known as TEMPS, is studying a self-reported symptom tracking mobile app that could help prevent the spread of the virus. Tulane Medical School is also recruiting participants for its Janssen vaccine trial. The Tulane University Medical Center is leading a CDC-funded observational study to understand the natural history of COVID infections among certain populations. If you'd like to take part in any of these trials, we have a link to all that information on our website.
And right now, Pfizer is the only company on track to provide a COVID-19 vaccine soon if it is approved. But how will distributions be handled in New Orleans? Leslie's following the latest from city leaders on that. Leslie?
If Pfizer stays on its projected track, Sheba, about 25 million people will get vaccinated before the end of the year, but there will be an order to that distribution. According to the CDC, COVID-19 vaccine eligibility will happen in phases. First responders, K through 12th grade teachers, and those 65 years of age and older will have first priority. Young adults, children, and those without underlying conditions will be allowed to receive the vaccine afterward. In terms of how you'll get it, Walgreens and CVS may be vaccine distribution points. New Orleans has also tested different ways to immunize a large number of people safely and smoothly, and other capacities. That includes ongoing drive-through COVID-19 testing and several drive-through flu shot events.
What we envision is very much how we've run our community-based testing strategy. So drive-through, walk up, deliberately in neighborhoods with maybe a lot of people who don't have a car, working with our community leaders, our neighborhood leaders, our faith leaders.
And the city says it's also possible the National Guard would help with distribution as they have with COVID testing. According to a recent poll by the Wall Street Journal, 70% of people surveyed expressed willingness to get vaccinated, but half of them do prefer to wait until the shots are deemed completely safe. 27% surveyed said they would not want to get vaccinated.
All right, thanks, Leslie. As COVID-19 cases grow nationwide, Louisiana health officials hope to keep those cases below alarming rates. In its latest update, the health department reported 380 new cases yesterday and 12 new deaths. The number of COVID patients in the hospital increased by 30. The health department reported 380 more cases and 12 new deaths in those latest numbers.